Rmurdanam Devake Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Right, we're still on chapter 2 and the verse 48. Right. Yogastha kuru karmani. Yogastha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Siddhayo siddhayo samo bhutva. Siddhayo siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam yoga uchyate. O Dhananjay, the conqueror of wealth, perform actions, duties, being steadfast in the path of yoga, renouncing attachment, having become even-minded in success and failure, and that equanimity is called yoga. As I was telling you last week, that different scripture has given the different definition with the yoga. Okay, and definitely we will try to understand from the different scripture the definition of yoga. But we now at least continuing this explanation on the verse 48. So here Swami Ram Sukdas Ji has mentioned that intellect is of two kinds: indeterminate and determinate. The intellect of those whose aim is to enjoy worldly pleasure and prosperity is indeterminate. And this is Bhagavan Krishna has explained very clearly in the same chapter. We have seen that in verse 44. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya parutachetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhau navidhiyate. Meaning, Bhagavan says, with their minds deeply attached to worldly pleasures and their intellects bewildered by such things, they are unable to possess the resolute determination for success on the path of God. While the intellect of those whose aim is equanimity and salvation is determinate. Indeterminate intellects are endlessly diverse, while the determinate one is single. Those whose intellects are endlessly diverse are themselves undecided and are worldly. This is also explained in the same chapter, the verse 41. And that's why Shakespeare's Hamlet, I always tell you that to be or not to be is a question for me. Okay. And Shakespeare's Hamlet did not have Bhagavan Krishna, whereas in Gita, Arjuna has Bhagavan Krishna. So he has answered everything. So are themselves undecided and are worldly. That's Bhagavan has told in 41st verse of chapter 2. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusha hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. O descendant of the Kurus, the intellect of those who are on this path is resolute and their aim is one-pointed, but the intellect of those who are irresolute is many branch. Here Bhagavan has mentioned Bahushaka. Bahushaka means many branches. But those whose intellect is single have rightly resolved and they are strivers. So single point attention, single point minded, equal. And that's why there it is said in Hindi, Ek sadhe sab sadhe, sab sadhe sab jai. Friends, if you aim for single point with your focused mind, then you will be able to achieve everything. But if you try it out this and that, you won't be getting anything right. So here, as I told you earlier, what Bhagavan says, but those whose intellect is single have rightly resolved and they are strivers. Bhagavan has mentioned this in 9th chapter in the 30th verse. Apijet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhag sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. Even if the vilest sinners worship me with exclusive devotion, they are to be considered righteous because they have made the proper resolution. It's very good verse. Apichet sudurachar atishai papi. Atishai papi. But what it says, bhajate mam ananya bhag. Exclusive devotion. And once that is taken care of, rest will be taken care of. What Bhagavan says? Considered righteous because they have made the proper resolution. Equanimity is of two kinds, of the mind and of the self. To remain even in favorable and unfavorable circumstances or the conditions without having any attachment or aversion is equanimity of the mind, while equanimity of the self is union with Almighty. That again in the same chapter, but that we will see in next few weeks. That is, Bhagavan has described in 53rd verse, just before the Sita Prajna starts. Okay, Bhagavan has mentioned Shruti vi pratipannate yada sthasyati nischala samadha vachala buddhis tada yogam vapsyasi. When your intellect ceases to be allured by the fruitive sections of the Ved and remain steadfast in divine consciousness, you will then attain the state of perfect yoga. Buddhistada yogam apapsyasi. There is, Swamiji explained, a distinction between the worldly people and strivers, the seekers, those who want to walk on the path of spirituality. The goal of the worldly people is to enjoy pleasure and prosperity and their intellects are not determined. So basically what? Eat, drink and be merry. Eat, drink and be merry. Have the family life. And when the time comes, die. Live the life with no motive, no intention, no purpose in life. But if that is the life, then rest of the animals, the cattle are doing the same. If we are also doing the same, then what's the difference? I have shared this word so many times in our classes. Ahara nidra bhayamaithunam cha samanyametat pashuvirdharanam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hinaha pashubhissamanaha. Ahar, food, nidra, sleep, bhai, fear, maithun, family life, sensual pleasure. Samanya etat pashuvidaranam. These four things are common between animal, cattle and human. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho. Tesham means in human, in us, in you and me. What is extra, what is little extra is dharma. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho. Dharmena hinaha pashuvishsamanaha. And where there is no dharma, those who think that I don't need any dharma in my life, I'm not saying the scripture has mentioned them. They are, I can't say bad, as good as animal. Pashuvishsamanaha. They are, I mean, not necessary animal have two legs. The human can be, if he is behaving like cattle, then with two legs, cattle. So, the goal of the worldly people is to enjoy pleasure, all worldly pleasure, eat, drink and be merry. That's the only intention in my life. And their intellects are not determinate, but are scattered in many directions. I must do this, I must do this, I must do this, and are endlessly diverse. On the other hand, strivers, intellects are determinate, and the strivers in their practical life maintain equanimity in success and failure. Here the word to be underlined is in their practical life. Practical life means in day-to-day life they can maintain the equanimity, they can maintain the balance of their mind. So, in practical life, maintain equanimity in success and failure, profit and loss, and favorable and unfavorable conditions or circumstances, without having attachment or aversion. Such strivers conquer the mortal plane and are established in eternal. That's Bhagwan has mentioned again in the 19th verse of the 5th chapter. What Bhagwan has told about them? Ihaiva tairjita sargo yesham samye sitam manah nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmanite sthitaha. Those whose minds are established in equality of vision conquer the cycle of birth and death in this very life. They possess the flawless qualities of God and are therefore seated in the absolute truth. Ihaiva tairjitah sargo yesham samye sthitam manah nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmat brahmani te sita, seated in the absolute truth, that is Brahma. Patanjali Yoga Darshan gives the definition of yoga. Yogaschitta vritti nirodhatah. The control of the mind has been called yoga. Yogaschitta vritti nirodhah. Yoga is the stillness of the activities of mind. Mental activities are like waves of thought. Mental activities are like waves of thoughts. If one succeeds in totally suspending them, one attains yoga. Suppose, by strenuous efforts, if someone restrains the operations of the mind, what is the use of it? Then what is the next step? Right? That is in India, that has been even explained in the next sutra. Right? So yoga is the stillness of the activities of mind. Yogas chitta vritti nirodhah. I'm just giving you as per Swami Ram Sukdas ji's commentary in this, but I'll be explaining all definition in separate one of the classes. What other scripture has written about yoga, right? Then, as a result of this yoga, the seer rests in the self. Tada drashtuhu swarupe vasthanam. In such a state, the seer of the self gets established in his real form. Very clearly mentioned, gets established in his real form. The witnessing soul, which is sentient, which is pure and unsullied. That means faultless, gets established in its original divine form. What is the real form? The real form is divine form. This is the beneficial result of restraining the modulations of mind, and this is the ultimate gain. The supreme element is thus realized or perceived. So that is the definition which is from the Patanjali Yoga Darshan. You can say for the yoga, you can say the pioneer of the yoga. Nowadays, they're selling yoga and limited with the physical exercise. હવે તો દોરિયા શીખવે બધું એટલે the word yoga has gone. Yoga, Krishna, Arjuna, Pandava, Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra. But at least they are trying. Most important thing, that they have thirst to know the scripture, and that's I really admire. I really respect for that. And we are all MBA. You know MBA? મને બધું આવડે. We are all MBA. At least they have thirst, and that I really respect. yoga, right? What has been Patanjali Yoga Darshan, what has been called the result of yoga, the Gita declares the same as yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equality in yoga. Samatvam means having a quiet and unmoved mind. Samatvam yoga uchyate. A quiet and unmoved mind, regardless of external circumstances. Tam vidya dukkha sanyoga yogam yoga sangitam. That again Bhagavan has mentioned in 6th chapter and 23rd verse. It means that the Gita declares that when a man, means self, is totally detached from the mind and naturally rests in the self, that state is called yoga. By getting established in this yoga, equanimity, there is no deviation from it. Therefore, it is also called Nitya Yoga. Nitya means eternal. Eternal union. Yog, yuj, to join. So, end of the day, yoga means to establish an union between individual soul and universal soul. Nitya Yoga, eternal union. When the mind is controlled, that is Nirvikalpa Avastha. That's the Vedic term. Nirvikalpa Avastha means state of cessation of thoughts. Ensues, but when by equanimity a man rests in the self, that is Nirvikalpa Bodh, Nirvikalpa Avastha and Nirvikalpa Bodh. Nirvikalpa Bodh means knowledge of truth, or that is known as Sahaja Avastha, self-realization. Swamiji explains that Nirvikalpa Bodh is not a state, but it transcends all states. It is their illuminator and is the result of all yoga disciplines. The state are both Nirvikalpa without distraction, Savikalpa with distraction, but both is only Nirvikalpa. Both means again knowledge. Both is Nirvikalpa. Thus, the yoga of the Gita is, Swamiji has mentioned, the yoga of the Gita is more remarkable than that of Patanjali Yoga Darshana. The person who is not of mood means deluded, and kshipta, volatile, inclination, but is of vikshipta, sometimes constant, sometimes volatile. Inclination is eligible, qualified for yoga of Patanjali Yoga Darshan. But all the persons who want to attain God are eligible for the yoga of the Gita, God realization. Not only this, but the person who, instead of attaching importance to pleasure and prosperity, attacks importance to this yoga, such a seeker of the yoga, equanimity, also transcends the fruit of Vedic rituals performed with some motives. And that's why Bhagavan has mentioned this in the 6th chapter. Jignasur api yogasya shabda brahmati vartate purvabhyasena tenaiva riyate hyavashopi saha. Indeed, they feel drawn towards God even against their will on the strength of their past discipline. Such seekers naturally rise above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the 6th chapter comes, we will see because Arjuna has asked that we start this practicing, and in the meantime the person dies, what happens? All the efforts what he has put or the time he has devoted, what's going to happen? In that answer, Bhagavan is telling about another few verses. Anyway, okay, we're going to conclude today's class because I have to attend the meeting. Okay, in today's discussion, whatever you like, whatever you enjoyed, credit goes to all the scriptures, all the saints, all the great men. Whatever I have heard, I have read, I have studied, absolutely, absolutely nothing belongs to me. And yes, as you know, our main reference book is Sadhak Sanjeevani, written by Swami Ram Sukdas Ji. Okay, so today we're going to conclude with 73rd verse of 18th chapter as usual. Nashto moha smritirlabdha tvat prasadan maya achyuta sthitosme gata sandeha karisye vachanam tava vasudevasutam devam कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवके परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। लक्ष्मीनारायण भगवान की जय।